what's going on, all you beautiful souls out there who decided to donate some of your time to watch me today. I am back with another reaction video, and today we're gonna be doing the history portion behind Light in the Black. I keep wanting to say dark, that just rolls off the tongue more. So this is about the United Nations, a little bit of deep diving into the history behind the United Nations peacekeepers, the blue berets or the blue helmets. I don't know which one's acceptable. I always known them as the blue berets, but I have heard the term blue helmets before, so maybe they go by both. I don't know. I'll probably learn right now. It probably is not a big deal, but if it is, I do apologize. Like I said, I'm not very savvy into like other cultures, even though United Nations is kind of like a coalition of cultures. But you know, hey, we're gonna go ahead and dive right in. 19 minutes long. Thank you to all my Patreon supporters out there who are helping to support my channel. I really do appreciate it. I couldn't say thank you enough, and I don't know how to show the appreciation. Every video I keep saying this, and I don't know specifically what to do to show my appreciation. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and shut up because this is 20 minutes long, and I am running off of like no sleep. I am cracked. Hopefully I don't yawn too much in this video. I'm not tired. It's weird. Even though I haven't slept, I'm tired, but I'm like up. I don't know if it's the coffee. I don't know if it's the 5-hour energy shots. I don't know if it's just me being like just, you know, snapped. But anyways, Jay, shut up. I'm gonna take some notes. Light in the Black history, United Nations blue berets, baby.
Not many bands would write songs.
There we go. There we go. And I hope you guys are having a nice spooktacular October. My birthday's tomorrow. Hopefully I can see you guys in the comment section. And yeah.
Not many bands would write songs about the international peacekeeping force of the United Nations, but Sabaton is such a band.
Yes, so a toast to those people who give a light in the black.
I just did Metal Crew where they're drinking on stage, and now he's busting one open for the soldiers, man.
To those people who give a light in the black.
Millions of tongues record thee, and anew their children's lips shall echo them and say, here, where the sword United Nations drew, our countrymen were warring on that day. And this is much, all which will not pass away. Lord Byron, Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, 1812. Even back then, just during the Napoleonic Wars, politicians dreamed of the peaceful coexistence of the great powers, of regulations concerning violence and warfare, and of nations.
I'm sure even I was call them peasants, even the civilians of the world would just want all the mighty people of all around the countries, all the mighty countries, to just get along. Like, they're tired of war and they're tired of fighting.
Directing their energy and their money towards health, education, and an everlasting peace. A hugely ambitious and possibly realistic attempt after the Great War by American President Woodrow Wilson failed, though, because of a lack of international commitment.
Oh, okay. Did not know he tried to do it first. A lack of international commitment. I wonder who decided no. Was it like a multitude of countries that said nah?
It could not prevent increasing aggression, nor was it able to stop the outbreak of another inhuman war. It was not until June 12, 1941, when politicians from Britain and its dominions met with representatives of the exiled governments of the European nations that were currently under Nazi rule to proclaim a common struggle against Hitler.
We cannot yet see how deliverance will come, or when it will come.
Old Churchill, man.
But nothing is more certain than that every trace of Hitler's footsteps, every stain of his infected and corroding fingers will be sponged and purged, and if need be, blasted from the surface of the earth.
Winston Churchill, inspired by that poem of Byron, called this association of countries the United Nations. In January 1942, once the United States had joined the war and the whole world turned into a massive game of Axis and allies, the modern United Nations were officially formed. This was 26 governments under the guidance of the Big Four: the United States, Britain, the Soviet Union, and the Republic of China. And they declared themselves convinced that complete victory over their enemies is essential to defend life, liberty, independence, and religious freedom, and to preserve human rights and justice in their own lands as well as in other lands, and that they are now engaged in a common struggle against savage and brutal forces seeking to subjugate the world. By 1945, 21 more nations would join, and on April 25th, with the defeat of the Axis near, representatives from almost all the members met in San Francisco to draft the official charter of the UN. The Charter of the United Nations Organization focuses on international peace, stability, and security. The nations working together to prevent wars or threats to peace through diplomacy or military action if necessary. International disputes would be decided by peaceful settlements, with the United Nations as a mediator. If a nation made acts of aggression towards another, the UN Security Council would meet and then give the verdict of the General Assembly. The United Nations is inherently democratic. Today, it's 193 nations, addressing things like the world's economic, social, health, and human rights issues, and dangers to peace and security. Any member may bring a complaint or a request for consideration, and if 2/3 of the members vote for it, the Security Council is bound to act. The first step is always economic sanctions, and only with no other options available will they resort to military force. Even then, active peacekeepers, only lightly armed infantry without tanks or military aircraft, are to be sent out on a very restricted mandate. They are not to fight a war, but to broker peace. Offensive force must only be the last resort if the lives of the UN soldiers are actively in danger. Okay, this all seems fairly straightforward and filled to the brim with good intentions and idealism, but there were several restrictions right from the start. The disputing countries or parties must agree to allow the peacekeeping mission to do its work. The mission must not interfere with internal politics or take sides in the conflict, as this would sabotage the impartiality of the UN forces. That was especially tricky during the Cold War, as the US and the Soviet Union had contradictory agendas about everything. The missions could only work if the disputing parties would actually show willingness to cooperate with the UN forces and allow them to move about and inspect freely within their spheres of influence.
Sent into battle to aid strangers in need. Gain independence, our forces will lead.
The first engagement of the UN was soon to come and could not have been more difficult, as the Arab-Israeli War in 1948 spun out of control. The General Assembly called for the end of hostilities and sent in military observers and mediators, installing a permanent presence in Jerusalem. Hopes were high for brokering a lasting peace, declaring Jerusalem under international protection, and forming a two-state government. But those hopes were quickly dashed. Armistices and agreements were carelessly signed and quickly disregarded. As it turned out, Palestinian and Israeli forces cared little for UN objection, and the UN observers found themselves dragged from one local conflict to the other. And their small mobile force could not hope to prevent the arms race that was beginning in the region, nor the further radicalization of the warring sides. Since nearly all great powers with the right to veto had interest in the region, there was little that could be achieved. And still, this conflict remains unresolved to this day, with UN forces repeatedly invited in and then shown the door. On the other side of the world, also in 1948, the UN was supervising elections in the southern part of Korea, even as tensions with the communist North worsened. The military invasion by the North in 1950 caused the Security Council to demand the immediate withdrawal of the North Korean forces. However, while the UN was debating, the US felt morally committed to the South and was already sending troops into the region with the support of the British Commonwealth. Blindsided by this, the UN followed suit, uniting troops from 15 countries and medical units from another 5 under US command. The Soviet Union, which forfeited its veto by boycotting the Council for rejecting Communist China as a great power, called this illegal. As to them, this was clearly an internal and not international conflict. Although the Korean War cost the lives of thousands of UN troops and an armistice was finally reached in July 1953, A peace treaty still does not exist to this day, but with its resolution fulfilled, the UN withdrew nearly all of its forces. Okay, the UN has had its ups and its downs over the years. There is no denying its successes. It provides food to people in over 75 countries and vaccinations to more than half the children in the world. It works with election monitoring and refugee assistance, among many other things. But the song is about the military side of the organization, and particularly the questioning if what you've done against forces of hatred was enough, or if the lives of your fallen comrades meant anything in the big picture. And the line, "restrictions gone," is really food for thought to me. The UN mandate is pretty inflexible. How would things be without it? And what failures has it led to?
Marching ashore, our targets, our rates. Facing resistance, forces driven by hate. Protecting civilians while fired upon. Rules of engagement, our restrictions are gone.
The darkest point for UN peacekeeping was in the Balkans in the 1990s. After the death of Josip Broz Tito in 1980, and with a steadily declining economic situation, old feelings of fear and hatred between the Serbs, Croats, Slovenes, Macedonians, and Albanians boiled. Yugoslavia broke up, and a series of
I know a bit about this. Actually, I was gonna bring this up during the music video or during the actual reaction to the song. How I met somebody on Call of Duty that was actually from Croatia that actually talked about he had a real disdain for the UN because of the way he was explaining to me what had happened, but I'm about to figure it out right now. He was actually talking about that, the Balkans in the 1990s.
old feelings of fear and hatred between the Serbs, Croats, Slovenes, Macedonians, and Albanians boiled. Yugoslavia broke up, and a series of wars and irregular fighting over independence began tearing the Western Balkans apart. The UN was trying to help the negotiations between Serbia and Croatia, but agreements and ceasefires were as easily broken as they were passed. In April 1992, the situation further deteriorated in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and the UN sent peacekeepers to establish a security zone at Sarajevo Airport to ensure that humanitarian supplies could arrive. The UN troops were under the mandated peacekeeping rules of engagement, with the rights to search and confiscate military weapons, but not to engage in the conflict. On May 8, 1993, an agreement was reached for demilitarization of Srebrenica. The small force of UN peacekeepers tried to stand between the Bosnian Serbs and Bosnian Muslims, but the region descended into chaos. On July 6, 1995, the Serbs advanced and the Bosnians retreated into the UN enclave. But while Serbian forces began ethnic cleansing in Srebrenica, UN forces withdrew or simply stood by. What followed was a mass execution, and forces began. The region descended into chaos. On July 6, 1995, the Serbs advanced and the Bosnians retreated into the UN enclave. But while Serbian forces began ethnic cleansing in Srebrenica, UN forces withdrew or simply stood by.
The guy that I was talking to in Call of Duty, he had said that they requested support, and the UN didn't send support. They just ignored the request, I think, or something like that. Maybe this is
UN enclave. But while Serbian forces began ethnic cleansing in Srebrenica, UN forces withdrew or simply stood by. What followed was a mass execution of Bosnian men and boys at the hands of Serbian paramilitaries. Now, this caused a huge international outcry, showcasing the lack of protection the UN offered by strictly following its mandate. The United Nations is an ambitious and maybe over-ambitious project, but world peace through international cooperation is a desirable goal.
It's hard to like do an outline of rules to follow when things like that happen. Yes, you're not supposed to get involved. You're not supposed to pick a side. But when you see a massacre like that, you have to step in. That's why you're there. But like I said, if they're not being fired upon, they can't really, put their hands in it. But I mean, if that's why you're there, you have to intervene. I mean, it's not even like picking a side. You're seeing one getting slaughtered. I mean, it's not, you have to. I don't know. That's just my opinion, but you just have to intervene.
But
like I said, it's really hard for me to like judge them, like I said, I don't know what I would be able to do in that position. What decisions I'd be making. So
World peace through international cooperation is a desirable goal. There are plenty of people willing to put their lives on the line to protect strangers in need. And by donning the blue beret with the UN insignia, or the blue painted helmet with the global projection insignia, they accept a new role with international responsibilities. Countries like Japan, Austria, and Germany were again able to be part of the international community and try to make the world a better place. And even those smallest, or I guess underestimated countries, can contribute to the peace in their region. It was and is a cause worth pursuing. But how can you make the world a safer or better place when at times it refuses to cooperate? From that occasional lack of cooperation to conflicting spheres of influence by the great powers to a simple lack of men and material, there have been periods when it seemed like the UN could achieve little despite temporary ceasefires or overseeing the exchange of prisoners or the destruction of weapons or even supervising the work of the local police. Billions of dollars are still spent every year, though, with hundreds of thousands of troops deployed all over the world in either peacekeeping efforts or diplomatic missions. There are successes and there are failures. There is, of course, bureaucracy and problems with multinational cooperation. But remember, evil can only triumph if good people stand by and do nothing.
like I said, it's a tightrope. It's a fine line to walk. It's a fine line to cross because you don't want to like in that case in the Balkan War or the Balkans that happened. If they would have like intervened, they probably would have seen it as the international, all the nations coming up against them, for them simply winning their part. You know they're massacring the other side. You know how it looks. I don't know. It's just very difficult. Like I said, it's real difficult. I don't know what I would have done in that position too. What do you guys think? Honestly.
And the march home begins. What awaits has not yet been revealed. What was won, what was lost, will our deeds be remembered? Are they written on stone or in sand?
Okay, well, as I said, most bands would not write a song about the International Peacekeeping Force of the United Nations, but you guys did. So how did that even come about?
Okay, so this is in quite early.
Well, this actually had to be interesting. What made them want to? Like I said, they cover all kinds of topics, and so I guess, of course, obviously, they probably would have just come up eventually. So, but I wonder why they decided it so early on.
Early in the Sabaton career. This is from the second album that we actually made about historical content at Hero Dominatus. And at this time, we were constantly looking for different topics that we could write about. And there was a lot of people who said, well, why don't you sing about us? We are doing this, we are doing that. And there's a lot of countries participating.
Hey, man, just real quick. Can we admire the beard? I'm so jealous, man, of people who can grow beards. I can't wait till I start my Discord so that people can start like adding their photos and stuff because I want to see what my subscribers look like, and I would like to see if anybody got that full-on par beard, how majestic that thing is, man. I'm jealous. I wish I could grow a beard like that. I can't. This is the most you guys are gonna get from me. I tried before in my early episodes. You guys can see that. It just looks like, I'm not gonna say it, but it looks rough.
Us, we are doing this, we are doing that, and there's a lot of countries participate in the United Nations.
Sure.
And we thought that we combined them all together into one song.
And what was the reception then to this? I mean, how did people think, great, a song about the UN, or did people think, no, we want a song about, I don't know, Nazis or, Poltava or whatever?
For sure, the songs that we do about World War II, mainly, they become more popular.
Yeah.
So this song has a little bit slipped into the past, and it's a bit forgotten these days.
Now, tell us about how the song came about itself. I mean, the actual writing of it and stuff, because you said it was really quick.
Yeah. The whole Atero Dominatus was so damn quick. I mean, after we released Prima Victoria, there was a lot of pressure on us to put out new music immediately, and a lot of the songs were written at the same time.
Well, they're being pressured by their record label holders. God, I hate that. An artist should be able to have time to create. Being rushed just dilutes the quality. But I did like the album, so even though they rushed it, it's pretty darn good. Even though people are saying it's a second least favorite album, I'm loving it, man.
A lot of pressure on us to put out new music immediately. And a lot of the songs were written at the same time as Prima Victoria. So those are kind of like sister albums.
Okay.
When we did Prima Victoria, we had much time. We had no pressure at all. It was we had all the time in the world, basically, because there was nobody who was expecting an album from Sabaton.
Right.
But after Prima Victoria, we had almost no time. So at this time, we had to do the whole album with mixing procedures and finalizing songs and writing the songs and everything in 3 weeks.
Okay.
And we also were negotiating with to do our first bigger European tour. That's why we were so short on time. But at the end of the recording, it was an interesting situation. So our keyboard player at this time, Daniel Myhr, he couldn't join the tour because he couldn't get time off from his regular work at this time. We needed a new keyboard player, so we recruited.
Imagine that. They still had second job. They had their base job still while becoming these freaking stars. Like I said, Primo Victoria had already been out. Were they not making money at that time? Like, not enough money? You know? I don't know.
Recruited a guy only for that tour.
Yeah.
So at one night, I'm driving to pick him up from the train station to take him to our studio where he's gonna stay. And we come there late night. We see the door. And it's broken. And this guy, Alex, was his name? He's like, oh, shit, well, is it supposed to be like that? No. But let's go in and see if something is missing. So without thinking further, I just open the door and I walk into the dark and see if something is missing. And what happens is that there's this dark guy who attacks me with hooded things and a crowbar. And he starts trying to kill me.
I did not see this coming. Did any of you guys see this story coming when we started this interview? I didn't see that. Sorry, that is great.
Yeah. So he attacks me with a crowbar and starts hitting me.
Yeah. Shit.
And he beats me down and he starts hitting me when I'm down with the crowbar. He breaks my arms and stuff like that. And Alex, this guy,
Both his arms? He said breaks his arms?
with the crowbar, he breaks my arms and stuff like that. And Alex, this guy who is with me, he panics, so he runs away.
Okay.
And then the funny thing is, you could think that he runs away and he calls the police or something.
Yeah.
He runs home to his friend, and then he forgets what just happened. So he just goes home to his friend and hangs out. And I'm beaten down in our studio.
Hey, Alex, how you doing?
And I mean, I don't know. People act very strange in situations like this. And I can't
I don't know if you act that strange, where he just totally forget.
blame him. He was very young as well. So, but it's a very weird situation. So he runs home to his friend and he's like, what happened? Nothing. So it's all fine. Anyway, I'm there and I have to get the ambulance and police. The police is not even in town. It takes forever for them to come.
Oh, the guy does run away. He doesn't kill you, obviously.
No. He gets away. And when the police asked me if I knew who it is, I had no clue about. I mean, he was masked and I had no clue. I was like, I don't know who it was. And then I wake up like the night after or something like that from a nightmare. And then I know exactly who it was.
Yeah.
So I make a phone call to the police officer and say, hey, by the way, it was this guy. And they're like, but he was masked. How do you know? I was like, well, because I spend a lot of time with this guy. I know him. And they are like, so you know the guy and he tried to kill you? Yeah, that's probably what happened. So they took him in and they actually found stuff in his car, which was from the studio next to us.
Okay.
But they couldn't connect him to this, so he got free.
There are no fingerprints or anything.
No, there was no fingerprints taken.
But wait, how did you know this guy? I guess we're not allowed to maybe say his name or anything.
No, we shouldn't. I mean, he's not convicted.
Dave.
So we can't say his name, but I know who it is.
And it was was it like a friend?
Yeah.
Or, really?
It was a friend of me who I actually played together with. So I was in a band with this guy.
Wow. And he broke into your studio.
And tried to kill me.
Well, now you guys might know, Sabaton fans, you guys already know whose bands that Par was a part of. He said he was taller, so you guys might know who he's talking about. I don't know what other band Par was in besides Sabaton.
And which arm did he break?
This one.
And how was that? You were just about to go on tour.
Yeah. That's another great story. So I'm in the hospital and I'm like, I can't.
I totally forgot while he was explaining these stories, and I love the story so far. Like I said, this is why I would like to buy a beer for the guys and just like hang out and hear these crazy stories. But this story initiated from what made him think of making a song about the UN peacekeepers, and he just went into this story.
be here. I need to be on tour.
Yeah.
And the doctors is like, yeah, it's just a broken arm. So it's not something that will be dangerous over time. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't move my fingers. And he's like, try. And then I held my finger, and then he was moving my fingers. He said, they do work. You just need to bite hard, but you're a metal guy, right? So you can take the pain. I'm like, okay.
What a
I will have
doctor,
to do
man.
that. and then he said, I will give you some pills, and they will help you if you are not tough enough to play without pills. And I'm not saying
You're not tough enough.
this, but if you want, you can mix them with alcohol, and it will be like you're flying on the stage.
This is a doctor saying this?
And I was like, I'm okay, whatever.
Whatever. Swedish doctors, man.
Yeah, great. And actually, the first show of the tour was in Manchester, in UK, and I didn't took any pills. I didn't thought about it, so I just entered the stage like, "Rah!" Like all guns blazing, and it was so painful that at some point it was like I just stopped functioning, and I just fell down on the stage. But it was I had to simplify everything and play with only one finger because it wasn't possible.
It was
so
okay,
like that. And then after the shows, I needed to wear bandages and stuff.
Wow.
But,
Okay.
yeah, all of that.
Ouch.
Oh,
It was during the recording of the Ateo Dominante song.
And do you still hang out with that old friend of yours?
I don't.
Okay. Well, there you
Come
have
on,
it.
Indy.
A critical
What kind of question is that?
analysis of a song about the international peacekeeping forces of the United Nations.
That laugh says, oh, that's what we're talking about.
Analysis of a song about the international peacekeeping forces of the United Nations. But it is a really good song, and it's a great story, and you've heard the history now as well. Tyler, that was brilliant. All right.
Okay.
Well,
cheers
say
to that.
goodbye to everyone for today.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
My eyes teared up from laughing at that.
And see you soon.
On Sabaton History.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's how he thought of the song. From a random friend from back in the day that broke his arm. That's what made him decide to play. I don't know. That was insane. That was crazy. Great story, like I said. So that's pretty, like I said, okay. Apart from the great storytelling of Par, what do you guys think about that? That's what, initially when I first heard the title, when I first learned that the song was gonna be about the UN troops, that's what I kind of thought about. Was that one guy who had was upset about the UN because he said they don't do as much as they should be considering they're the global security, which I guess, you know, it's because it's created by humans, it's not going to be perfect. They have an outline to live by, a rule set to go off of, and if they destroy that, if they go against their own rules, then they could be seen as corrupt, not following their own rules. And why should other countries who aren't part of the UN follow the rules as well, or even people who are, or the countries that are part of the UN, why should they follow the rules? So I guess I could see, like I said, it's difficult, but when you see something like that, when it's something extreme, like you see another group of the, what was it, the two Bosnians, the Serbs and the Muslims, I think they said. Oh man, I'm already forgetting. That story really threw me off. But when you see one side just decimating the other, at one point I understand, like, hey, that technically they're winning, so I mean, you can't really, I mean, you can't intervene in a war when there's two people, when there's two nations fighting each other, or two, you know, two people's, groups of people's fighting each other. If one starts winning and overly dominating, should you intervene? Because that is how a war works. That's how battles work. You're supposed to be there to keep the peace, but when this all else fails, do you intervene to stop that total just beat down, or should you let it happen? Because hey, I mean, we're just here to keep the peace, but since there's clearly no peace to be kept, do we just, you know, stand by, idly by, and just allow it to happen? So there's a lot of food for thought on this one. I didn't realize how much pressure, you know, you think it's as easy as, hey, these are the bad guys, these are the good guys, help the good guys. But being the world security, you cannot pick sides. So that's even more difficult when you gotta see that, happen and you can't do much about it. Hope you guys enjoyed the reaction. I certainly enjoyed the video. Always enjoy history videos. Indy was, I wonder what really made him think of writing the song about the UN. Like he said, he was thinking of, like, they were thinking of a bunch of topics, and I'm sure, like he said, by the fans saying, hey, about this, about that. So I don't think they had a lack of content to go off of. So I wonder what made them choose the UN so early on, especially when they were talking about Primo Victoria. They had those songs, this album where they're talking a lot about World War II. Why the UN? You know, it's not far-fetched because they, you know, they developed because of World War II. But I mean, that was really crazy, those two stories he went off of. Hope you guys stay safe out there, stay blessed. Tell someone you love them while you still can. And of course, I will catch you guys in the next one.